Hi there, Peter Kalos here with your acting tip for the day. Today I want to talk to you about one of the ingredients that takes your acting to a whole other level. This isn't a simple discussion. You can't have this in 5 minutes, right? There's many different topics and many different ingredients. So we'll just talk about one at a time here and there and try to layer these things as you can with your own acting. I remember Stella Adler talking years ago, and she once said, if you're playing an alcoholic, you're playing every alcoholic since the beginning of time. She called it biblical because there's alcoholics in the Bible, right? What she meant is you now have a responsibility to represent that character as honestly as possible. What most actors do is they get their script, you get an audition or whatever it is, or you get the role, and you start memorizing your lines in your living room, in your bedroom, and you kind of do it. And most times, that character that you're playing, you haven't actually met, you've never actually seen, you've probably seen them in a film. So now what you're doing is copying someone else's work. We want your version of your work. So now that is required some research. See, in the old days before internet, you would have to go meet a guy or a woman. Who are these people? You'd have to go find them and say, hey, who are you? Tell me about the job. Tell me about how you think. I remember De Niro once, he was interviewing a guy and he said, tell me the first thing that pops in your head. How do you think? What's the first thing you think of when you wake up as a character, right? So most of you focus up on the lines, focus about how you're going to say them, focus on the intensity or the emotion, and that's acting. That takes place easily 80% of the actors out there. It's neck up. It's garbage, all right? It really is. We're talking about really fine-tuning your work here. I don't want you to think stereotypes. It's not about the stereotype. The stereotype is there because that's part of who the human being is. But you're playing a human being. You're not playing a caricature. You're not playing a stereotype. It's a human being who happens to be going through all this stuff. We're going to watch a clip. This is from a documentary I saw the other day. It's on Netflix right now. It's about, they found this Egyptian coffin, and it hasn't been opened for 2,000 or 3,000 years, and they just opened it up for the first time. Watch these next clips. The first one is about a guy who digs. Watch what he says. Watch the mannerisms. It's a human being, and your job is to play them. The point is, if you only go in there with the lines, that's all you're doing. And the director, Marlon Brando once said to a director, they had a big fight. I remember, his name would come to me. John something, I forgot, right? It was Island of Dr. Moreau. Marlon Brando once said to him, you've got 30 characters to worry about, I've got one. Meaning, it's your responsibility now as an actor to play that character as honestly as possible. So do your research. Don't just memorize lines. Find out how they work. As you all know, De Niro wore silk underwear when he played Al Capone. He went and got a job as a cab driver. Do you know what I'm saying? To find the mannerisms and the way the character thinks. They actually go out there, great actors. I remember Montgomery Clift talking about how, he played a guy once who played a trumpet, and he learned how to play the trumpet because he said certain sounds come out differently, right? He didn't just memorize lines. And if you don't think like that, your work won't even compare to these people. It's like, I tell people all the time, it's like a chef who uses a lot of spices. It's never one thing that sticks out. They're all there, but they're subtle. You don't shove them in people's faces. It's just there. That gravy makes your acting brilliant. And it takes a lifetime to master. You got me? So watch this clip and look how much you can take in beyond just memorizing lines. Look at that face, the cigarette. I mean, it's all there. And listen to what he says about the digging. It's part of his life. It's not just a job. He's been doing this all his life. And this is beautiful. Listen to what he says about the digging. Did you see that? Most of you would just sit there digging. It's not about just doing that. You need the subtlety. So, what most actors don't see is the fact that, hey, I took 10 minutes to find this thing. If I had this role, you have access to the internet now. You don't have to go find one of these guys in Egypt saying, hey man, show me what you do. The subtlety. So, when you're doing it as an actor, when you're pretending to dig, whether it's a small role or a big role, you're focused on what he said. Because if he saw it, he would know you're doing it right. And you've got to do it honestly. You can't just pick up a shovel and pretend to dig. Because the way you dig in an Egyptian, field is very different from how you dig in your garden. Remember Shelley Winters? She used to catch public transport to watch actors go home, go to work, and then come home from work. These are subtle things. Most of you don't do that. You just memorize lines. Watch this next clip about this woman. She studies bones, right? And they found a bunch of bones, and they said to her, "Tell us what we found." Watch what she does.
Every piece of bone can tell you something, not only the way of death. The more interesting stories are about their lives. First of all, I say Assalamu alaikum. I feel that I'm introducing myself to someone who is sitting in front of me.
She introduces herself to the bones. I mean, really? What an amazing detail to sit there introducing yourself to these bones because you're talking to a human being. This is brilliant. These are details that's never on the script. These are details that you find as an actor. And most people would have cast this like this. Diversity, Arab woman, they're going to put the whole outfit on, put the accent on, and now you're focused on the lines. It's garbage. That's what it is. You're casting a human being. You're not casting a stereotype. It's heartbreaking to watch as an artist. You watch actors just water down their characters because they don't think these things matter. Everything matters. The way they behave, the cheering, the excitement, it matters to the character, no matter how little or how big. It matters to the character. And you need to understand that. Because see, what happens is, I'll give you an example, like when De Niro played Al Pacino, he wore silk underwear. You'd never see them. He doesn't talk about it. He did it because it feeds the character. When he did Taxi Driver, as you all know, he got a license. When Montgomery Clift, and if you don't know who the hell he is, I mean, what are you doing acting, right? When he played a trumpet player, he learned how to play the trumpet because he said certain sounds come out differently. These are fine little things that add to your character, and most of us don't do them for this one reason. We don't see the connection. We don't think it matters. Or we think that when someone like Marty Scorsese calls you and you're going to be the lead in his film, that's when you'll do it. So what you're not doing is taking the other smaller roles that you're getting now and treating them like at that level. And that's what you should be doing. No matter what comes your way, you have to work at 1,000%. It's your job to make your project work, not everyone else's. Your job is to make your role the best you can. And it's these little details that get your work to a whole other level. And most times the director or the audience they're not even aware of them. They just feel it. It's a gut feeling. You're aware of them. You know as a cook or a chef what you put in your food. But it's just below the radar. So how do you expect your work to match their work when you don't do the same degree of detail? Because you bulldoze them because you don't think it matters. And I'm telling you, it makes all the difference in the world. Stop playing caricatures. Make it about the human being. Find these little idiosyncrasies and master them. This takes a lot of time. I know sometimes you don't have time, but that is why you stay on the acting treadmill, whether you're doing a class or you're just doing your homework, because that's when you develop them. You don't have time to develop this on a film set, but if you have time at home and develop them, you're going to get beyond the lines. It's those little things that matter. Take care. Thanks for listening. Get to work. Okay? See you again.